Heading into Fetterman, I mean, there was a slight leak in his office. A former campaign staffer wrote, or I don't, I was
Oh, that's
very
right.
much relied upon in an article saying that people are concerned about John Fetterman's well-being, his mental health. There was a car accident that he'd gotten into with his wife, and it was nearly fatal. I think that was about a year ago or so, and um, or it was after his stroke. So I don't, that may have been less than a year ago, but um, anyway, in people on the inside being concerned about what's happening and wanting to be transparent about it is perhaps my segue into this section on Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, who is being pressured. Well, he says he's being pressured into returning to work amid his ongoing mental health struggles. And yes, this is coming after a series of articles, one that I just mentioned, which have speculated that that Fetterman is not keeping up with his mental health recovery plan and has exhibited some erratic behavior in private meetings and is neglecting official Senate duties. A little background is Fetterman ran for the US Senate in 2022 and had a stroke that prevented his ability to communicate on the campaign trail. And at the time, he was a darling of progressives and the working class, and he still wears sweatpants to Congress to signal his solidarity with the working class. And in office, he has sort of shifted his tune a little bit and is now heavily aligned with AIPAC and their support for Israel. And he was one of the first Democrats to open himself up to Trump in his second term. And yes, there have been leaks about what people describe as this erratic behavior, and a video has surfaced of Fetterman on a flight back to Pittsburgh, which shows him arguing with the flight attendant over his seat buckle, which the attendant said needed to be visible. And
Is your seatbelt on?
Yes, it is.
Okay, it needs to be visible for the crew at all times. That's not on. That's not an us thing. That's a federal regulation. So it's okay. It's okay.
I put my seatbelt on and I haven't said anything.
Okay, it's okay, but it just has to be visible to the crew at all times. It's a federal regulation, so if your seatbelt's on, it just has to be visible. And right now, it's not visible. We have an extender if you'd like that. It'll make it bigger so it can go outside of your sweatshirt. Would that work?
No, I just don't really need to continue the conversation. My seatbelt is
You
on.
do, sir. If you want to go to Pittsburgh, it's simple. You have to follow our instructions. We're going to ask to get off here. We're not asking much. All that happen, like all that needs, we need to be able to see your seatbelt at all times.
I've been flying for 40 years now. I've never experienced this. I'm not sure what my seatbelt is happening.
Okay, what's a federal regulation? So if I don't make you do it, then I get in trouble, and I don't want to get in trouble because I like my job.
then an Associated Press report has surfaced about a meeting with Fetterman and leaders of a Pennsylvania teachers union in which he reportedly slammed his fist on his desk, yelling, "Why does everyone hate me? What did I ever do?" Fetterman's office released a statement calling it a spirited discussion and affirmed his support of teachers. So there is some turbulence happening in his office and around his duties and as a representative of the people of Pennsylvania.
Sydney, you want
And
to jump in?
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like this particular story, and maybe this is a hot take, is hard for me because I feel like there is already so much stigma around mental health, and there's so much stigma around the way that mental health is portrayed in the media, especially. So when I see this kind of story and I see this political drama, it's also really revealing to me around our cultural literacy of mental health and how we see depression or how we see depression being, as Fetterman says, like weaponized. And so it's kind of difficult when I see like these really clickbait narratives and they're really highlighting these things that maybe are like traditional or stereotypical like mental health signs or worries, and we're kind of turning it into like clickbait articles. And I just wonder like how we frame these narratives and what that like kind of shows not only about the politician, but about us as a society and the way that we're kind of looking at people. I kind of felt like a similar way when last week when we were talking about Biden and looking at their health, and it's kind of interesting the way that we look at people's health who are politicians or celebrities or people that are just so much more well known than we would of like a sister or a brother or a family member. And so sometimes I wonder like how we're framing those conversations in the media and kind of thinking about like the representation of mental health that happens here.
Yeah, I have kind of something in that vein. I think there's a slight difference I have, but I do want to preface that I have this. Maybe it's I don't know. Maybe it's petty. You guys tell me. But I have this. I don't know. I disdain for Senator John Fetterman. It's over a seemingly small thing, but the way he wears like this sweatpants and sweat clothes really bothers me that he's trying to signal solidarity with the working class because it's such a caricature of the working class. Like I grew up in a
Mm,
working class family and like whatever, they weren't rich and they didn't have designer clothes, but like if you had somewhere nice to be, like they put on a collared shirt or a nice dress or they did their hair like this caricature of the working class like rolling out of bed in their sweatpants to Congress. Like I don't know, it drives me nuts about him. But on his complaint, he's trying to what I kind of gathered is he's trying to say that the car wreck that he experienced, which still really hasn't been explained in detail, in June of 24, or these inside reports about his temper, not doing his mental health treatment. He's trying to argue these are all like media narratives
mm,
aimed at attacking him. And I kind of see it the reverse. I think John Fetterman has always been a character of interest. He is a character. And I think this is one of those examples, and you brought up Biden, Sydney. I'll agree with the Biden story on this as well, which is, I think the cover up is worse than the crime. It's not necessarily that anybody
mhm,
thinks Fetterman's doing something nefarious, but look, if you're one of 100 people in the US Senate, it has huge power. It gets to approve the Supreme Court, which serves for life, for example. You're the President of the United States, Joe Biden. The public needs to know if you can do the job, or even if you can do that, how you're doing the job. If you're doing it where you're screaming at people and crashing cars, like the public needs to know that. You're deciding critical questions about their childcare and their life and their future. So I think he's kind of lashing out at the media because he realizes the walls are kind of caving in on this persona he's created.
mm,
Yeah, this is a really tough. I mean, I think it's a really important conversation, but it's tough, and I felt kind of pulled in multiple directions. Like on a human level, I sort of politically definitely resonate with what you were bringing up, Nolan, sort of my frustration and where I sort of see hypocrisy and almost a little bit of a little insulting the point you make about this sort of stereotype of what the working class is and who they are and how they aesthetically appear. But also just like values wise, how John Fetterman has really turned against what made him a popular kind of character to begin with is frustrating. Um, but I think that the points that Sydney bring up are really important, and it kind of I think harkens back to our discussion on like corporate media, how it really like how does it make money? Oh, we need clickbait. We need people to click and to see. So there is that tie in there, and then it also makes me ask like taking away my own personal issues with John Fetterman, I am interested in how this kind of opens up a question of like what who's allowed to run for office? Do you have
mm,
to be this perfect, um, you know, neurotypical have the perfect health, or is there room to kind of have candidates that are not, that struggle with just the limits of being human sometimes. I because the power analysis though, it does make me think that if you are in the Senate, you're there to serve and to want to, is absentee part of the agreement? Is that something that your constituents can accept? Is like, oh, you fight for us, but you also just don't show up or don't want to show up. Um, I think that's, yeah, I mean, this is maybe a sort of flippant metaphor, but if I had a tendency or like a predisposition for skin cancer, would I go become a lifeguard, some on some beach at the equator. I don't know. Like that might be it might not be the best job for me if I'm someone that struggles with mental health or physical health or any type of issue that might come up might get triggered or come up in the line of work I'm doing, maybe. There are other ways to get involved, and you don't have to be, the Senate. Um, and then, yeah, my last sort of frustration is this, like, I'm sort of angry at the Democratic leadership that just repeatedly, it's similar to the cover up idea, but like, John Fetterman, he's sort of, I think his loyalty to AIPAC. I'm like, is he a pawn in there? Is he just here because he's a vote for Israel, is Israeli policy when it comes to the genocide in Gaza, and like or is it just a vote for the sort of power brokers in the Democratic Party that really want to maintain the status quo and not open up the seat to I mean, Pennsylvania is such an interesting state. It can go very working class, or there is a strong current of the working class populist sort of like desire there, and maybe they might lose a seat to someone who's more progressive, and Fetterman kind of plays a role. And so this sort of conversation about keeping certain politicians in office just because they help maintain power, I think is another kind of it's an important conversation that's underlying this discussion, and the fact that it is, there's a human part of the discussion too. It's hard to sort of pick a lane myself, but
Hey Detoxers! Thanks for tuning in. You can find Disinfo Detox on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and share. Every click helps grow the community and keeps those tech overlords happy. Detox complete.